Okay, hello everyone. I see a good handful of you are already here. Welcome to this webinar today in partnership with Bulletproof. We are going to give it just a couple of more seconds before I introduce our speakers, let everyone arrive and get settled. We've got a packed session here for you. I'm excited to get this kicked off, but let us just wait maybe just 30 seconds or a minute here so we can get more people in the house. I always like to see the names come in that I recognize, so it's fun to watch all of the attendees pop up in this little list. So welcome to everyone. It's good to see you. Hopefully I'll get to see a lot of your faces in person at TribalNet in just a couple of weeks. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First, again, just welcome to everyone for participating today. We're super excited to have you here in partnership with Tribal Hub and Bulletproof. We'll get started here in just a second. I wanted to make sure that put your comments and your questions in the chat box. Melissa and Lee are going to save time at the end to address all of those. So if you have comments and questions that come up throughout this presentation, just go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll continue as the presentation moves, but we'll circle back to them at the end. And as I mentioned, we have Bulletproof here today with us, and the Vice President herself, Melissa, is here, and joining her is Lee Edberg. He's the IT Cybersecurity Manager over at SMSC Gaming. And we wanted to let you know too, we are recording this session, so feel free to view it later on. It will be on tribalhub.com under our webinars area. And anyone who registered will also get an automatic email that has a copy of the registration. So you'll find that in your inbox shortly after we conclude. And we do have just a couple of learning objectives that the team has submitted for us today, learning the basics of cybersecurity in the digital landscape, and then also discovering what the cloud is, the pros and cons, and the latest technological trends impacting tribes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Melissa.
Thanks, Tracy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's TribalWise webinar on tribal cybersecurity essentials and embracing cloud technologies. I'm just going to share my screen here with our PowerPoint. I'll make sure you guys can see it. Are we good to go, Tracy?
Looks great.
All right. Like Tracy said, my name is Melissa Aarskaug. I'm with Bulletproof, and I will be your presenter today. I've been working with tribes for over a decade, assisting them with various tasks, most of which would include strengthening their cybersecurity defense and leveraging cloud-based technologies to enhance their operations. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Mr. Lee Edberg. Lee is a wealth of knowledge and has firsthand experience in adopting modern technologies to enhance their security measures at Mystic Lake. Lee, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. Appreciate that. Yes, I'm Lee Edberg, Cybersecurity Manager here at Shakopee Medwakaton Sioux Community in Mystic Lake Hotel Casino, just south of Minneapolis or near Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm an active steering member of the nation's first Tribal ISAC, where we have a strong membership. Many of you are part of that, and thank you for that, representing over 50 unique tribes across the United States. We've collectively share information that supports the optimal security measures to protect the tribal nations and their interests. More recently, I've also been serving with the Tribal Homeland Security Action Council, where I represent the Tribal ISAC and its members with the Department of Homeland Security to identify and implement solutions where we can create stronger cybersecurity programs for all tribal organizations. So happy to be here today and look forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Thanks, Lee. Here's just a quick overview of the things we're going to talk about today. An introduction to tribal cybersecurity, understanding the growing cyber threat landscape, cybersecurity essentials for tribal organizations, embracing cloud-based technologies, a few key takeaways, and our Q&A session. We've allocated time at the end to answer any of your questions, so feel free to put them in the chat. We'll do our best to address them and save time at the end. Now let's get started here. As tribal organizations rely on digital systems and processes, the need for robust cybersecurity measures becomes paramount right now. Cyber threats are on the rise, and they have severe consequences for tribes, their operations, and their reputation. In this section, we're going to talk about the unique cybersecurity challenges faced by tribal organizations and how to navigate them. Tribal organizations often encounter specific considerations that require tailored security approaches, one of which is data protection. Tribal organizations collect and manage sensitive data, including personal identifiable information, known as PII, and financial records. Protecting this data is crucial in maintaining the trust of the tribal members and key stakeholders in the organization. So implementing strong access controls, encryption, and regular data backups can help mitigate the risk of these data breaches. The second one there, the insider risk, employees, contractors, and vendors with access to sensitive information can unintentionally or maliciously compromise data security. So implementing those access controls, monitoring user activity, and establishing clear security policy and procedures is key. Regular security awareness training and enforcing a culture of security among employees is vital in reducing the insider risks. 3, importance of the cybersecurity security awareness programs. Many cyber incidents occur from human error, such as falling victim to phishing attacks or misinadvertently disclosing sensitive information. Educating employees about common cyber threats, best practices for password hygiene, and how to identify and report suspicious activity is key. Regular training sessions and simulated phishing exercises can help raise awareness and empower your employees to become a first line of defense for you. Now let's jump into the cyber threat landscape. We all know it's constantly evolving. It's not new. Tribal organizations must stay informed about these threats to effectively defend their networks and data. So number 1, ransomware. These attacks involve cybercrimes encrypting sensitive data and demanding a ransom exchange for its release. To reduce ransomware attacks, it's crucial to implement security measures such as data backups, network segmentation, and strong endpoint protection. Number 2 here is the phishing attacks. These attacks involve tricking people into providing sensitive information or sharing links or attachments. Tribal organizations are particularly vulnerable to phishing attacks due to the nature of their operations. Insider threats can be employees, contractor, vendors who have authorized access to organization systems or data. These individuals can unintentionally or inadvertently compromise security by stealing sensitive information, misusing privileges, or falling victims to these scams. Again, implementing access controls, regularly monitoring user activity, doing employee background checks, and fostering a culture of security awareness, and reporting these to internal employees and leaders are key and mitigating these risks. Lee, anything on these 3 that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess unfortunately, this is truly our reality today, right? I mean, every day and every minute, some suspicious activity is trying to jeopardize our data, our company's reputation, or our finances. And the keys, as you mentioned, Melissa, really represent the mass majority of the threats. However, I guess what I'd add is I don't think you can focus on any one individual area. They all play together. Each threat area is used collectively with the others to carry out the mission. So today's threat is all about behavior. I think in the past, we were very comfortable and we treated threat from a virus protection perception and it was all signature based, right? We're looking for this signature, we're trying to identify that. And now that's not true anymore. It's on the device, it's within the identity, it's and our devices, our IoT of things, it's across the board. It's all the equipment that we use, and how it's being used actually is the threat that is being exploited. So there isn't a cybersecurity in a box, doesn't exist. We have to figure out how to put a whole program together with all the pieces to try to defend all of this stuff together.
Absolutely. So cyber threats are constantly evolving. So it's like we mentioned, it's crucial to stay informed, collaborate internally with trusted partners, and adapt your security measures accordingly. So moving on to cyber essentials for tribal organizations. Robust access controls, number one. By controlling access to critical assets, organizations can minimize the risk of unauthorized access, data breaches, and insider threats. Strong access controls involve implementing secure authentication methods like multi-factor authentication, role-based access control, and least privilege principles. These measures ensure that only authorized individuals have access to specific resources, that access rights continuously. So they're being reviewed and they're being updated based on rules and responsibilities internally. Number two here, regular security assessments. I'm a huge fan of these, not only because they're important, but for your insurance providers as well. These assessments can include things like penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, security audits. For tribal organizations conducting regular security assessments, it's crucial to stay proactive in the face of evolving cyber threats. These type of assessments provide a lot of insight into your vulnerabilities, potential entry points for attackers, weaknesses in your security controls. And if you've never had one, they give you a baseline on where to move and how to make a plan next, which rolls into our third bullet point there, incident response plans. Incident response plans really outline the step-by-step procedures to follow when a security incident occurs. So they can include things like who to contact, how to contact the incident, how to investigate and assess any damages, and then, of course, how to recover and restore operations should the systems be down and not working. By having a well-defined incident response plan in place, organizations can reduce response time, mitigate any future damage, and assure a coordinated and effective response to the incident happens. And then just, one key thing is it's an ongoing process, and implementing these measures are really not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing approach, and you should be getting better and better with these as you go. Switching gears a bit, embracing cloud technologies. So advantage of cloud adoption, number one is definitely scalability and flexibility. Cloud platforms really offer scalability, allowing tribal organizations to easily expand or shrink their infrastructure based on demand. This flexibility enables tribes to accommodate fluctuations in workloads, such as increased traffic during peak gaming seasons or events, without the need for significant infrastructure investments. Everyone loves cost savings. Number two here is cost savings. By leveraging cloud-based services, organizations can avoid large upfront hardware and infrastructure investments. Instead, they can benefit from a pay-as-you-go model, paying for the resources and services they consume. The cost-effective approach really allows tribes to allocate their budgets more effectively and invest in other critical areas. Bullet 3 here, enhanced security. Cloud platforms often offer advanced security features, such as encryption, data loss prevention, and threat detection. Lee, how have you embraced the cloud-based technologies in your organization, and what expertise can you share with the listeners here today?
Sure. Cloud-based technologies, I think what we need to do as organizations is mature our thinking. I think in the tribal community, in the tribal nations, that's been a long trust cycle that has evolved over time. Can I trust the cloud? Can I trust things that are outside of my building? And so I'm a believer that today's world, that's just the norm. That's what we have to expect. And so that's kind of been our experience here is we've adopted and accepted that the cloud is where things are going to move to and migrate to. And truth be told, what's realistic is that I think you're going to live in a hybrid world. You're going to see applications and vendors take their product to a SaaS-based model. That's going to be common. You're going to see Microsoft moving your core infrastructure and such to, or the Active Directory and email and things like that, moving that to the cloud. And how are you going to adapt? Well, truth be told, from a cybersecurity perspective, the tools that you can deploy in the cloud are much further reaching, and they increase the scalability and they spread that wealth out. And so you can see some cost savings, but it takes time. But certainly it's the enhanced security that I think is the number one as we look down this direction. So what's that journey from on-prem versus cloud? In our experience, Microsoft led the way. They basically told us that our on-prem licensing in many cases is fading away. Office 365 is where everything is going, and so our on-prem Office packages and our email and all of that, those are things that we migrated first. And once we've got those up there, and now we've got the organization is dealing with applications that they use on a regular basis, and the upgrade to those applications is now a SaaS-based solution. So is our data okay in the cloud? That hasn't traditionally been an easy sell in the tribal world. I don't know if I can trust it. So what do you need to do to make it trustworthy? And I think those are some of the big dilemma questions that we deal with today. But over the past 2 or 3 years, I think you've seen a huge more acceptance of that because everybody's kind of seen the writing on the wall. So now, are you doing your due diligence to make sure that what you are putting in the cloud is secured? As Melissa mentioned, that data in transit, the data at rest, what are the encryption levels being used? How do you know that that data is yours? Are you going to get it back when you break ties with XYZ vendor? Or is it going to be destroyed? Can you guarantee that that cloud environment that you're working in or where you're storing your data is actually yours legally and technically, and that it's not owned by somebody else, AWS or Google, or pick somebody, anybody off the list? Is it their data or is it yours? And that comes down to some of them legal agreements and legal contracts and bindings. You mentioned cost savings. I would say that our experience moving to the cloud wasn't necessarily cheaper, certainly not on paper up front. And I think it's partly because you have to live in this hybrid world. Many of the people on attendees that we have here today, if you're running gaming operations, you'll probably understand my comment when I say moving to 100% to the cloud isn't necessarily reality today. We're going to continue to live in a hybrid world. While many systems are moving that direction, the truth is many of the gaming regulations are going to keep some of those gaming systems from moving to the cloud. So you still have to maintain this on-prem environment, but it has to work cohesively with the cloud-based environment in order for your whole operation to run efficiently and effectively. So our experience showed that our Microsoft licensing cost actually rose, but it rose, and then we had to look at what was the value of that cohesive and protective shield that we could lay over all of our devices, all of our servers, all of our identities and applications. That's where the justification starts to come in, is because your footprint has now spread. I like to use the analogy, I think years ago, we we looked at the world and we built a great big moat around our castle, and we populated that remote. We bought tools to help protect us, and we put piranhas and sharks and alligators and everything that you can think of that is dangerous to man. We put them in the moat so nobody could cross the moat and get into the castle and cause us harm. But today's world is different. The drawbridge is down most of the time, and people are coming and going in and out of the castle, and they're taking their device with them, and they're working remotely, and our data is sitting outside the castle now, and people need to access it whether they're in the castle or outside the castle. So now I need a blanket. I need a blanket to lay over top of all of my identities and all my devices, and understand where they are, what they're doing, what their behavior is, and whether that meets the controls that I've put in place or doesn't meet them. And if it doesn't meet them, how am I going to be alerted and take corrective action quickly so that it doesn't foster itself and become something very detrimental to my organization? So from our perspective, that was the thing that we looked at, was how do I lay a blanket over top of anything that I own, no matter where it's physically located, and no matter what it's doing on a regular basis. I think additional justification that we came to, obviously some of the you have some reduction in tools. Like I said, we had piranhas and sharks, and we had all these tools, but in between each one of those tools that we were using to defend ourselves and protect ourselves, there was a gap, because the tools all didn't always work cohesively together. We used best of breed tool for a firewall. We used a best of breed tool for intrusion detection. We used a best of breed tool for email security. We used X, Y, and Z, right? But having the staff, having the expertise, having the knowledge, and having the ability to cohesively make all of them work together, that becomes very difficult. It's a huge challenge, and reality is it leaves you with a bunch of gaps, and there's holes where threats and vulnerabilities can come through. So by leveraging the cloud for our purposes, we're leveraging, I think it's fair to say, we're leveraging Microsoft's Defender Suite and such, and by utilizing that, that has helped us put this mesh blanket across everything. So I have orchestration going on between the log management systems and the Defender systems on the endpoints, on the servers, in the apps, on the cloud, for the identities. All of that is cohesively talking to each other on a regular basis. And now those gaps that I had before, I don't have, but I was able to reduce. I got some cost savings, maybe, if you will, from reducing some of the individual tools I was using, and went to this more cohesive entity. Another place is resource efficiency. As I mentioned, it takes a lot of resources to keep it all working. And if you can train your resources and educate them on the new world, you now have one place to manage everything, and everything's kind of right there in front of you from a dashboard perspective. So I think you can be more efficient with your resources, and that can be potential cost savings, because now they're being used for more productivity efforts as well. And lastly, I think this is something that everybody knows, but for us, I think this is where we found maybe our largest win when it came to cost, and that's around cyber liability insurance. Again, kind of old philosophy, in my opinion, was that cyber liability insurance, as an organization, I've got to have enough. I've got to have enough to cover me when we go down, and so protect me. I could be down for a month due to a ransomware attack, and so I need to have enough cyber liability insurance to cover me for that. Truth is, I think you would all agree, I don't ever want to have to turn in a cyber liability insurance claim. I would rather build a proactive approach so that I never have to turn in a cyber liability claim, because that's a reactive measure. My opinion is that the damage has already been done. I am shut down, and now I'm turning in my cyber liability claim to try to bail me out. And now it's going to take me, if I was down for a month, it's probably going to take me years before I can get back on my feet again, back to that 100% level, because now I'm going to bring up the business or bring up that area piece by piece. It's not like a light switch where I just get to turn it on tomorrow. Yep, we've got to test our backups. We got to make sure that we've got backup in the event that that happened. Yes, you need those disaster recovery plans. Those are all great things. Those are all easy things that you can be doing today that really don't cost a lot of money, is put all those plans together. What happens in the event of a disaster? But we do all of that. So theoretically, we never have to exercise them in real life, right? That's the goal. So that's kind of my take on cyber liability insurance from a perspective of when this cost was going to come in and we were going to build out this proactive environment, embracing the cloud. Could we lower our expectations of what cyber liability levels we needed to carry? Reducing our cyber liability premiums. Does that mean that we don't have cyber liability? That's absolutely not true. We do. But now I'm looking at it differently, and I'm channeling some of the money I was spending on cyber liability insurance to carry a high coverage level, and I've reduced that coverage level and said the risk or the potential of me turning in a claim is lower if I can channel some of that funding over to this proactive approach, so that I can catch the problem, remediate the problem before it's detrimental to the business to the point where I'm going to have to turn in a cyber liability claim. So in short, I guess the transition to the cloud, it's a complex process, requires some careful planning and execution. Cloud solutions are certainly the direction where our future is going. Specifically in the gaming industry, I continue to see a hybrid environment for years to come. So how do you bridge that gap and make that work? And we also are addressing common concerns and considerations such as data sovereignty and compliance. I think that's another piece that you've got to understand. It's one thing to say XYZ vendor is selling me this SaaS-based solution, and they said to me at the table that all of my data is safe and secure. You need to cross your T's and dot your I's and do your due diligence. Validate that. How do you know that the data in transit that you're going to move from your on-prem up to the cloud, do you know that that is secured and encrypted properly? Do you know that while it's at rest, it is secured and protected properly? Do you know that they've got the right, they're meeting the right regulations and the guidelines from GDPR to just regular data encryption perspective and backup? Are they backing it up? Are all of them things happening? That's on you. You've got to do that due diligence, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for it. So don't trust blindly, right? Validate. The other thing that I see anyway is in this whole picture is that the gaming industry doesn't often allocate sufficient resources to tackle cyber threats, and many of you on the call can probably appreciate this as well. Tribes vary greatly. There are tribes that have many resources, but there's probably more tribes that have very few resources. And I think that becomes a huge challenge for us. We're supposed to protect all of this, and yet I don't have enough resources that can focus in any one of these particular areas. So that's why, in my opinion, I think we need to find those right partners that we can partner with to either augment or fill those areas for us. I know, living in Minnesota and being part of this tribal community in the Midwest, we're very fortunate from a standpoint of we can find talent, we can find resources with these skill sets and such, because we're located right in the Minneapolis area. But we have many of our friends that are located in the far outreach lying areas of northern Minnesota or western Minnesota or what have you. They just don't have the access to those same resources. Those resources don't want to move to them less populated areas, if you will, those less metro areas. So I think they struggle. You find tribes, and I've got 3 people in my whole IT staff, and we're doing it all. And no offense to anybody, they're doing a great job, but that's a large load. And now you're going to try to tackle cybersecurity, and you're going to try to move to the cloud, and you're going to try to do all of this on your own. That it's almost impossible. So find that right partner. And when I say that, be cautious. Don't find a vendor. I'm going to tell you to find a partner, because it's going to take a partner to make this work. They can help guide you. They've got the expertise to get you from where you are today into the cloud, and getting into the cloud properly with the right security measures and the right pieces in place, and getting all of that orchestration and that collaboration working with all of your tool sets. But then you want them there for the long haul. You want them to have some ownership in that and some stake in the game. So that don't let them be just a vendor so that they can walk away, or that you can someday say, I'm just not happy with you, vendor, leave me. Well, but if they did it all for you and they're doing it all for you today and they leave you, or you break ties with them, now you're left holding the bag and you don't even know what you've got. So for us, that's where we looked at our partnership was as we looked and partnered up with Bulletproof to augment our team. I've got people here, but I want my internal people to refer to the Bulletproof team by a first name basis. They are just an extension of us, and they are in it for us and with us. So that was huge, and I think that's why we saw a successful integration and implementation, and why I'm sleeping at night, because now I know that we've got the right protections in place, and there's some cultural change. Things are being blocked today or stopped today that maybe weren't being blocked and stopped before we did all of this. But at the end of the day, even the leadership of the organization appreciates that, because they know if that wasn't blocked, yes, that's an inconvenience, but at the same token, I don't want to be the one that brings the whole network down. I don't want to be the one that causes that problem. And we don't want that problem to happen, because we don't want to have to try to live through a major outage that jeopardizes our entire organization. So in short, I guess I know that was a long-winded way of explaining all this, but from our perspective, I'd recommend you enter into embracing the cloud-based technologies thoughtfully and cautiously, but it's inevitable. Be prepared for it. It's going to happen. You're going to go there. And if you don't start to embrace them, they're going to come through anyway, and you're going to be left in the back end and trying to figure out how to catch up. And then it's going to be too late, because now you've got your own vulnerabilities that can't be tracked. Stuff is happening in the outside world, and you don't even know that it's happening, and then until it's too late and it's come into your castle. And again, don't get sold on a tool. I'm a believer. I don't think there's one tool out there that is the answer. There isn't 100% guarantee that I'll never be hacked. There isn't 100% guarantee that I'll never be compromised. I have to live each day believing that. But can I leverage these tools that exist in the cloud and within my organization to monitor everything that's going on, so that when that abnormal situation happens, it alerts me so that I can take action on it before it becomes a problem. And our goal is to obtain zero trust environment, and that's a methodology. It's not sold to you in a box as a single tool.
I love it, Lee. I love the castle explanation. It's very clear and vivid when you explain it that way, because you are right. And in the industry, we're very reactionary, not proactive. So it's, just generally speaking, you have really great points there of moving to, a reactionary to a proactive approach. And the majority of the breaches I've been part of, or the scaling and the adding of the security tools and such, unfortunately has happened after something has happened in the industry. A lot of the organizations I've been part of, the remediation, in some cases, the insurance didn't pay for all of the breach, either A, because they didn't have pieces that the insurance company had asked for, or B, they hadn't filled out some of the things they had asked of the insurance company. So another key point that you mentioned I wanted to bring up is the policies. In some cases, some organizations aren't getting cyber insurance because they don't have MFA, or they haven't done anything whatsoever with security. So in some cases, the organizations that have purchased policies at the beginning of the pandemic may not be able to get those same policies anymore, because they don't have, MFA enabled, or they've never done a security assessment. So some of those organizations I'm working with, they've decided to, instead of paying the $100,000 plus for the policy, they're going to take that same $100,000 and do assessments, use tools, and build something with those dollars. And so I loved, you had so many great points. I hope everybody is taking copious notes because there was so much in that, Lee. So thank you for that. And then just kind of the fourth one here is the business continuity and disaster recovery. And these are really for organizations, these plans, you need when an unexpected event happens. When you store data in the cloud, you can quickly recover from any incidents and minimize your downtime. Switching gears a bit on navigating the cloud migration journey, which Lee gave you some insights, lots of insights that are helpful. Just a couple quick pieces here. He hit on it really well. Define objectives and prioritize your workloads. You really need to sit down as a group and start to identify the objectives and goals of your migration. Determine which workloads or applications are suitable for the cloud and prioritize them on the business value and impact. So Lee, I absolutely agree with you. Hybrid cloud environment, there's going to be some things that need to be on-prem, but identifying those as a team and figuring out what can go and what can stay. It helps organizations create a clear roadmap and ensure that there's a structured and planned approach to the migration. The second one here, assess and prepare the workloads. So conducting an actual assessment of your existing infrastructure, your applications, and data to identify any dependencies or compatibility issues. You may not be able to move everything to the cloud. There may be things, old slot machines or old things that you have on-prem that have to stay on-prem. So laying that out and preparing the migration with those details can be very helpful. So you can classify the data, understand any compliance requirements you might have, and integrate with any existing systems that you might need to migrate. The third bullet, choosing the right cloud provider and services. Lee explained that one very clearly. You want to make sure that evaluate factors like security, performance, scalability, customer support. He mentioned he wants to have a relationship with his partners. That's key, knowing who to call. So you're not on a hold call or at a help desk who doesn't know you, who doesn't understand your environment. It's important to be able to react. And you want to make sure you have a partner that understands your organization and who you are when you call. Addressing data sovereignty and compliance, super important as you migrate to the cloud. You want to make sure that your cloud provider that you pick can comply with any regulations that you have. And data protection is a big thing right now. Addressing those concerns, data residency, access controls, data privacy, make sure that you're maintaining not only maintaining in tribal compliance, but any federal and other jurisdictions. So if you have hospitals and they have HIPAA compliance, there's many different nations have different businesses and they all have compliance requirements. So bringing it all together in one solution is key. The fifth here is implementing robust cloud security measures. We've talked about that quite a bit. And then the last is plan for change management, employee training. I am huge and a big fan of the employee training. Like if we go back to your castle analogy, if people are blocking the castle and catching things before, the perpetrators or piranhas can get through the castle, it's going to be a huge help to the organization. So making sure cloud adoption involves changes in workflow, process, tools, people, and making sure you put a plan in place for your employees so they understand what's changing, how it's going to affect them, and really empower them to get the training they need. So my favorite part of this podcast webinar is talking about the success story of Mystic Lake. It's real life, it's pertinent, it's important because a lot of what Lee brought up impacts you guys. Maybe your tribe says no way to cloud. Maybe they say we don't have the budget. He has been through these things, and he is here to share his valuable insights and really be an inspiration for your nation on your cybersecurity journey. So with that, Lee, I turn it over to you to share a little bit more about your success story in migrating to the cloud.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, and maybe before I start in on any of that, I agree with you, Melissa, on the training of the people and how the importance of that. Sitting on regional tribal groups and boards and panels and such, we all talk about this on a regular basis. Are we doing phishing training, and are we educating our people? I always use the term the human firewall because, as I said earlier, there isn't one tool out there that's going to stop it all. It doesn't exist because it's constantly evolving and morphing. The threat actors are constantly evolving and morphing their attack method and process on a second by second basis. So we don't have the technology that can stop everything, and that's what I sell to our leadership, is that there isn't a golden egg that protects everything 100% of the time. So the weakest link, as we tend to realize or recognize, is the human employee. That is the weakest link. That's where it's probably going to start. There's a 98% chance that that's where the problem is going to begin. And it's going to be somebody inadvertently clicking on an email. It's going to be somebody inadvertently connecting their laptop to a Starbucks network, and all of a sudden something comes in and they don't even realize it. It could be something where we don't have a policy in place that stops people from sticking USB stick devices into their computer, or maybe we do, but we've allowed it for these people because that's how the vendor wants to work with them and send them patch updates and things. And then that USB stick came in and it's got malware on it, and voila, it just started running. So the human is the weakest link, in my opinion, and the more education we can give them to create the human firewall, the better. So regular phishing campaigns, regular education, just letting them know and keep it top of mind. And that's not just good for them at work and in the business, but it's good for them at home. Take that home with you. Use that in your day-to-day. Use that same caution that you use for opening up your work email and your investigative zero trust methodologies and mindset. Use that when you're opening up your Gmail at home. Don't fall victim there either. So yeah, I can't say enough about that. That's a key component and a huge area that we try to focus on here, and our program continues to get stronger and build better all the time. Excuse me. From a success perspective, I would say I'll use one instance here. We fairly recently we had experienced a phishing incident ourselves, and as it turns out, that phishing incident could have been quite detrimental to our business. But thanks to what we just recently have implemented with our SOC provider, Bulletproof, and with the Microsoft Defender suite and all of the configuration to create this environment of orchestration from the endpoint protection to the identity protection to the cloud protection to the cloud app protection, and our SIM and all of that orchestrating and working together. This phishing incident that occurred, it got clicked, and immediately the endpoint recognized that didn't seem right, and the server where it was trying to access through recognized that didn't seem right, and so that the Defender suite created an alert and said, we've got some behavior that doesn't seem quite right, and that hit the SOC team, and the SOC team basically said, yeah, through our investigation, this isn't right, and we're going to take immediate action, and we're going to kill that user session, and we're going to basically remotely, we're taking that computer off of the network. We're shutting down its network access so it can't talk to anybody else. And we started to control that. And so through that process, now we're getting alerted by the SOC team. And Bulletproof provided continuous support throughout that investigation, saying, hey, look at this, look at that, clean this. But because we were using this cohesive system, we already knew how far reaching it had gone. So there wasn't a guess. We didn't have to guess in that situation. A few years back, we had a similar situation. We thought we had it all cleaned up. We thought we had it all protected and all done, but we didn't really know for sure. And so we were constantly for the next few weeks living in this. I think we were okay, but keep monitoring everything, watch everything, make sure it's okay. With what we've put in place now with the email filters and the detection systems and the all the Defender components working together cohesively, we know how far it went. We know which devices it had touched. We know which ones it didn't touch, and we were able to quickly remediate the problem. So the earlier that, yeah, the earlier you can identify and address the concerns, the greater chance you have of remediating it. And so I'm going to respond back with invest in that proactive approach. It is going to cost you more upfront, but in the long term, it's only going to take, I always say it this way, it's only going to take me one breach to cover the cost of all of that. It's only going to happen once. And then the checkbook will open up by your leadership and they'll say, how do we not ever have that happen to us again? And don't let it go that way. So educate them, educate up the line and get those things put in place today.
Absolutely. So just a couple key takeaways from today, and then just kind of in closing before we open it to questions. I think, the one thing I hear is doing something is important, right? So to get started, no matter what it is, no matter what your budget is, something's better than nothing. Finding an organization that you can be truthful and honest with. It's easier for us as vendors to get you what you need when we understand what we're working with and we understand your challenges internally. And if a tribe has decided no cloud technology, we can make suggestions in other areas, how to make you move that direction. So if we know we can help, and then realizing it's one bite at a time, you're not going to solve everything we talked about in 1 month. This stuff takes time and patience and dollars. And I would also second what Lee says is connecting with your peers that have done it and hearing from them on the challenges they had. I've had some tribes I've worked with, which were adamant about tools. I let them go to those tools and now they went back the other direction. So sometimes making a decision is great. You can always make another decision and make some changes as you go, but make a decision. So I know we're coming close to time. I won't keep going, but Tracy, Q&A, do we have any burning Q&A questions that are out there?
Melissa, nothing came through the chat, which usually means that the presenters did a thorough job. So kudos to both of you. If anyone does have questions, put them in the chat. We could definitely address some of those. But I do wonder, Melissa, are there just questions that commonly come up when you're talking to folks about a lot of what you just covered today? Are there some typical things that you're like, nobody might have asked this, but this is probably on somebody's mind?
I'm so glad you asked. Type A, Melissa prepared the questions, right? So usually the top 3 I get are, number 1, how can our tribal organization strengthen our cybersecurity? So very general question that I get, like, what can we do today? And so one of the things I always mention is it's a multi-layered approach. It's like, I always use the pizza analogy. It's like, asking for a pizza and not being able to explain what you want on the pizza. You got to tell us where you are and what you need and how hungry you are to build that pizza. And so Lee, anything, from your perspective, like if a tribe is starting out, they don't have the budgets, they're new to cybersecurity, what can they do today?
Yeah, I love your pizza analogy. Actually, in my opinion, like you said earlier, Melissa, something is better than nothing. So doing anything puts you ahead. But I would say you don't have budget, you don't have cost, you don't have the support to do something. but you know you have a responsibility. Start with the planning. That can be done without a huge investment. You don't have to have a consultant. It's nice a lot of times because they can help give you some direction and lead, but I would start with that planning. Get your disaster recovery plans in place. Get your business continuity plans in place. Get your information security policy in place. Know what it is that you want to do in your organization, and then use that as a springboard to leverage and say, great, we should tackle this first. And that's what I'm going to go and ask for budget for as I start to build this program. I think you said it well, but my analogy would be, we can't boil the ocean. Cybersecurity is huge and it's constantly evolving. It's going to change on you. Before you get to the finish line, the path will have changed 4 times. So 100%. You have to be agile. You have to be able to move within that. And you have to make sure that the leaders in your organization who hold the purse strings recognize and appreciate what they're up against, that they can't buy a product and then they're done for the next 10 years. It's not a capital investment that way. It's constantly evolving, and it's a journey. It's not a solution or a product.
Yeah. And I would say everyone can afford cybersecurity. Whether it's, you have a $5,000 budget or $1,000 budget, getting experts that know a little bit to help you. I just did an assessment for a tribe that had $5,000. That was their entire yearly budget for cybersecurity. And I sat down with the tribe and mapped a plan on what makes the most sense today with that budget versus doing nothing. And then they leveraged us for virtual CISO services. So they didn't have security people on staff. So we were helping them on a day-by-day basis that fit their budget. So a little bit of something and knowing who to phone goes a far way when something happens. And then kind of switching gears a bit. So for the tribes who have said, okay, we're interested, we've done our security assessments, our tribal chairman is entertaining cloud technology and cloud security. How can we use cloud technologies to help us enhance our security? Lee Edberg.
Yeah, I was reading one of the questions that had come in, so we'll cut through this one quickly. How do we leverage the cloud? I mean, it kind of goes back to everything that I was talking about earlier. It is what's going to come your way. Fighting it is futile, right? So something in your organization is going to be in the cloud, whether you like it or not. And now you've got to figure out, what solutions do I have to know what's going on in the cloud? Because I have content, I have people, I have devices that exist there, and I'm responsible for them, and they could potentially be a weak spot that comes in and ruins my castle. So I guess all I can really say is embrace it. It's okay, but do your due diligence. You cannot trust blindly. Just because it's in the cloud and it's cheaper doesn't make it better. We have the business comes to us all the time from an IT perspective and says, hey, we saw this beautiful new toaster and it's going to make the best sliced bread you've ever seen, because it is. The vendor told me it will. Okay, well, we've got a process. We went through and did our planning, and those things all get vetted through. So IT takes a look at it from all the different aspects, from the network and how it's going to integrate, to the security and how it's being deployed, and the encryptions and all that. We make sure that we vet that all through all those processes before it goes back up to the financials and the executive leadership to say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and put that system in place. Sometimes that's a fight. Sometimes it's a very easy conversation. So
I love this question, anonymous attendee. It's one of my favorite questions, which is on my questions here. That was one of my next questions, is awareness training. Do you find that one more successful with upper management engagement or involvement, or is that generally just a push from IT and hopefully others get involved in it and take it seriously? My answer to start, I'll take part of that, Lee, if you don't mind, is it depends, right? Like it could make sense for IT to take it. in my opinion, I think that is an easy outsource activity for a very low cost. There's a ton of cybersecurity e-learning tools that are a managed education service. So people would, onboard, offboard users, they would push phishing campaigns, they would do all those things for you, because those are things that do you really need to be in the day-to-day to make sure your employees are doing user awareness training? Maybe not. I would say your day-to-day is better focused on the business and driving revenue for the tribe. Because those education tools are fairly cheap to use. Leah, I know you use one, so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're doing the same. We're using third party to help drive it. But I've got the resources, and we have found it successful in our world that we stay involved in that, so that the message is coming from the trusted internal IT source, and they recognize that, so that when that phishing campaign comes through, is that one that IT generated and is trying to educate me, or was it one that actually came in? So we find that being involved, and we're working with HR learning and development. But I think to answer the question from the attendee, we've got the support from upper management and leadership, and they will talk about it briefly in their postings and in their message to the organization. But IT is really driving it, and we're driving it with our partner.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, when it comes from upper management, hey, John Smith caught this. Congratulations, John. And you gamify it. I've seen some organizations gamify it and say, wow, John caught this. We're giving him a coffee in the coffee bar, or we're, the monthly blast to upper management, or the HR blast. I think if you can make it a positive thing, that when the casino is open and functioning, or the health hospital is open and functioning, everybody's at work. If they're not open and functioning, everybody's home, and it affects profitability across the board. So I think it just depends. I think a hybrid approach, I've seen most organizations use this mostly these days. I know we have 2 minutes left and we still have questions, but I want to give us like a little bit of time just to express gratitude. I love doing these webinars with TribalWise, and I love doing it with tribes and clients. Just a quick plug for TribalNet. I'm very excited about that. I can't believe it's September on Friday. I'm going to say next month, but like this week, it's next month. So if you're attending TribalNet, we'd love to see you on our booth. We'd love for you to attend some of our sessions. If we didn't get to your questions, let's set up some time. We can run through it and provide suggestions. I don't want to speak for Lee, but I think he's part of the group at TribalNet. So he's always open to talking with you. And we wish you all the best in your cybersecurity journey and future endeavors. And thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
Tracy,
thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, Melissa and Lee. I just started to do a screen share because I wanted to say the same thing about TribalNet. We have so many cybersecurity topics on the agenda. And Lee happens to be one of our speakers. He's doing this incident response and reporting. We have a representative from Bulletproof, I think, on our AI session. Melissa will be at her booth. So all of those questions that you guys are putting in now, I saw Lee is trying to answer them in the chat, but feel free to come talk to us at TribalNet, ask your questions, attend some of these sessions. There's just going to be a wealth of knowledge and opportunity to continue the conversation there. That's what TribalNet's all about. So thank you again so much. Thanks everyone for participating. I hope to see most of you in just a few short weeks at TribalNet. But if not, you'll get an email with this recording just as soon as we get it up and processed. So thank you so much, you guys. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Tracy. Everybody. 1 minute to spare.
Oh, look at that. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Bye.
Have a great day.